Hello, Buddy Fighters. This is Buddyfight News Corner. It's a new channel that I am starting up. First video I'm going to be doing is obviously a Danger World deck profile for my Armorknights. Easiest thing I can come up with. So, Iblis is my buddy. For a 1 gauge call cost, you put the top card of your deck into your soul, to its soul, and it has double attack and Soulguard. That is amazingly undercosted for Danger World. And then it also has added benefits when you have 3 or more cards in Soul, it gets Penetrate, and 5 it gets an extra crit. But that's just extra. You play it for the 1 gauge, top deck Soulguard, and double attack. Now starting with the zeros, Blackout Gone, he's probably one of the best Omnilords right now. At the beginning of your main phase, Pale Life, bring him back from the drop zone. So it's a reusable size 0. He has Eagle stats. I don't know why Danger World has all of their size 0s weak now, but whatever. It's a better Eagle. It's pretty much why you play this. It's also, this is your really only way to plus, per se, since you have no real way of draw power, and it's really easy to get him in the drop zone with the impact. You just mill it, and then you just bring it back next turn. And then 3 Little Drakes. This was originally at 4, but I cut 1 for the Count Dawn, because I'm not going to add more size 0s. Little Drake's a 2/1/1. You can discard a card, and put a card from your drop zone into the soul of another card in your field. Works great with all the aces. Works great with Cradle. You can also soul stack with Iblis and just stall for days. It's just an amazingly good card. Problem is that it's also a promo, so it's kind of hard for some people to get it. But the 2K power is really good for when you actually have to fight or hit things with it. You won't really have to hit things with it, because you'll just penetrate with Iblis or Cradle, but, you know, if you have to. For Gargoyle Ace, 2/1/4 has the Ace restriction where if you have 5 life or less, you can put it in the soul of your weapon. It has Counteract. You put it from the soul of your weapon to the drop zone, and you nullify any attack. Any attack, while you have a center, while you don't have a center, if it's a link attack, if it's a single attack, anything. So it's kind of like what Mockbraver does for Hero World, except it's not as consistent, but it's a whole lot more abusable. Especially with things like Jet Fighter, Battle Spirit Unite, and then Iblis. You have a lot more defensive options than you used to, and you're not just going to instantly die if they have enough, crit to hit you, because you only run 4 nullifies. Speaking of Jet Fighter, 3 Jet Fighters, a 3/2/5, costs 1 gauge with move. This is mainly in here just so you have more Battle Spirit Unite targets that are actually good, that aren't just Iblis where you sit on the center. It helps a lot with you having your triple formation, being able to attack for lots of damage and then still have defense. The best part is you can also reuse him, and since you don't really use Gauge very much in this deck, you just keep bringing him back, and most of the time with reuse, your targets are Jet Fighter, Archangel, or Iblis. Unless, you just try to stack on with Gargoyle Soul, but it's not really. You don't do that very often. Here. And then 2 Eagle Ace. This was at 4, and then it was at 3, and now it's at 2. The reason it's only at 2 is because there's not actually a whole lot of destruction for your weapons that don't have to hit or deal damage. Most of them, they have to deal damage, and, with all of the Battle Circles, Battle Spirit Unite, Gargoyle, they usually won't be able to hit you, but for things like Boldness and the Katana World one, the Counter Destroy, those are really the only 2 things off the top of my head that I know destroy a weapon without actually having to deal damage. It's also a 3/2/2, so it's got pretty decent stats. Most of the time it's sack fodder. Since you only need one in your weapon, it's not really needed, but it's nice to have, especially against, you know, things that actually will destroy your weapon. Ancient World with their Thunder Tornado. And then 3, Archangel. He's a 2/2/4 size 2. These stats are abysmal, but his call cost is you put as many Armorknights from your field into its soul, so you can put 0, you can put 1, 2, 3. Most of the time, you're just going to put 0. But for each card in the soul, it gets plus 3k power. That's nice. But it's got double attack and Soulguard. So you just plop it on the right or the left, since you can't call it to the center, and you just swing for 4 crit. Because it has no call cost. You don't have to pay gauge, you don't even have to put anything into its soul. But the more you put into its soul, the more power it gets. The power really isn't an issue, and most of the time, the things you would actually want to put power, make it power up, was you can just use Battle Spirit Unite for the same thing. And the Soulguard for him, it's not really very good, because he'll just armor reuse him back. So you don't really need to put things into its soul. And you want them to attack Archangel. Archangel is essentially what draws in all of the attacks. At least until, you know, you get Iblis and you just start sitting on Iblis turn after turn. And then 2 Cerberus. Cerberus is great for removal. It's a 5/2/5. You can act, put a size 1 or less Armorknight from your field into its soul. Facebook, go away. And then you can put a card from its soul into the drop zone to destroy a card on the field. Or not a card, but destroy a monster on the field. It's great against things like Ancient World and dungeon enemies where you actually have to destroy the center or the left or the right before you actually can hit them. It's not the best card anymore. It's still a 1-for-1 removal with decent stats. And the 5k defense makes it so it's not terrible if you have to sit on it. And you can use Little Drake to discard and put something into its soul, so that's something, I guess. And the buddy, the 4 Iblis. MVP of the deck. MVP of every Armorknight deck ever. The 1 gauge for 7/2/5 with double attack and Soulguard. I can't even begin to describe how undercosted this is for Danger World. Demon was great, but his cost was too high to be relied upon. The 2 gauge and sack a monster. The 2 gauge was doable, but to sack a monster in a deck that really doesn't have any way to plus, it's kind of meh. This opens up a lot of defensive and offensive pressure options, because you can sit on it, you can call it to the right, and then, you know, once you have 3 or more soul, you get penetrate, and then you can just, they have something in the center and you have Cradle equipped, you just link, and then they just cry because you have penetrate. Now, that's all the monsters. There's 22 monsters, but you don't really need many monsters for this deck because of armor reuse. I tech 1 Invigorating Breath. A lot of people don't like Invigorating Breath. I like it because it's free, but you only play 1. You never want to play more than 1 Invigorating Breath. It's a very clutch card, because you play it and you gain 4 life. That's essentially 2 nullified, since most cards have 2 crit now. The 4 life helps a lot against things that have impacts that will just kill you, which this deck doesn't do well against. This deck will auto-die against things like Gargantua, the Crimson Impact, the New Hero World Impact, things like that. Any impact that just burns, we have no way to stop that. You could run Phoenix Wall, but Phoenix Wall doesn't stop most of them anyway, so it helps you get out of range so you don't die. And Shredding Battlewall, it's essentially a green dragon shield while you have a weapon equipped, but you can only defend yourself. You play this at 2 because you're not always going to see your weapon, but gaining that life and nullifying an attack is really, really good. Just that one life that puts you above their impact range is just incredible. Especially since it also adds more nullifies to the deck, which it really needed. And then 2 survival chances. You only play 2 because with all the defense in the deck, the amount of times you'll drop to 5 life or less isn't very much. You will more than likely sit at a really high life and then just keep pummeling your opponent until you have your Cradle ready to just hit for massive damage. Now, one of the best defensive cards in Danger World, Battle Spirit Unite. Counter, choose a monster on your field. For this turn, increase its power or defense of the power of a weapon on your field, and it gets counterattack. So when you have Cradle, it'll give plus 5k defense or attack. Most of the time you go for defense. So if you have Iblis in the center, Iblis becomes a 7-2-10 with counterattack. Jetfighter becomes a 3-2-10 with counterattack. It just opens up a lot more defensive options, especially since Cradle allows you to play things in the center. And even if you have Swirling Darkness, it's still plus 3,000, so it'll have 8k defense. That's still really good. Especially since now most things only have 3 or 4k power, and they'll have to link attack to get over 5 anyway. And now probably one of the best spells, I'd say, in the game, Armor Reuse. You choose any Armorknight monster from your drop zone and add it to your hand. It allows you to get back your Little Drakes, your Archangels, your Jet Fighters, your Iblis. It's essentially 4 copies of every monster in your deck. It also allows you to run lower copies of cards like Eagle Ace. Like, I can only run 2 Eagle Ace, and I will see it every game because of Reuse plus the impact. It is a wash, but it still allows you to consistently see what monsters you need to see at that time. And then, you know, the 4 battles or circles. It's just the standard Null. The original non-green dragon shield Null. You just don't have a monster in the center, you nullify an attack. It's great, because you're not always going to be walling on things, but your main defensive option is Battle Aura Circle plus something in the center. Now for weapons, there's 2 Rikdu Demon Slays, but the only reason I have 2 of that is because I don't have the 4th Swirling Darkness, because I don't know what happened to my 4th copy. But I liked it at 1 at least, because it's still a 6-3, and you're not always going to be sitting on Iblis in the center. And this really helps against a Raging Spirit matchup, because the 6k easily hits over all of their monsters. Now, the 3 Swirling Darkness. Swirling Darkness is just a 3-3. You play it just so that way you can keep spamming Iblis in the center. It's either this or Cradle that most of the time you'll be equipped with. The 3 crit does help a lot for OTKing and pressure, but it's mostly there just because you can call things to the center with it. Then the MVP weapon of the deck, or Cradle. Cradle is just an insane weapon. It is free to equip, a 5-1. At first it looks pretty meh, just a 5-1. But you can act Pay Gauge, put a weapon from your hand or drop zone into discard soul. You can only do it once per turn. And then it gets critical equal to the sum of the critical of the weapons in its soul. So that's why we play 5 3-crit weapons. 5 3-crit weapons to make full use out of Cradle. Because you really only have to have 1 in there, and you make a 5 crit. Or 4 crit, not 5. It helps a lot for OTKing your opponent, and once you have 3 or more, it gets Penetrate. It kind of just auto-wins against a lot of decks. Like Dungeon Enemies or Ancient World, that's not Dual Dragons, pretty much always put things in the center. And then, the last card in the deck, 3 Demon Arms Door Armor Gate. You mill 5, well, if you have to have a weapon equipped, but you mill 5, and then you put a card from your drop zone into the soul of a card in your field. This is great because you can soul stack Iblis, so you can just sit on Iblis all day until you find you know, your weapon or your Cradle, and then you just swing for massive damage with Cradle. Or you can put your Gargoyles and your Eagles and things like that into the Soul. Or if you're desperate, you can put things in Cerberus and then just pop things with Cerberus. Most of the time, it either goes into the weapon or Iblis. This impact helps with consistency a lot because it also sets up for armor reuse when you mill 5. If you mill an Iblis, you can armor reuse that Iblis back next turn, which is really great. It helps the deck's consistency a lot. Well, that's it for this deck profile. I will have more videos coming soon. I'm going to be not really doing very many deck profiles since I really don't own many decks. I will be getting my friends' deck profiles up soon-ish. But mostly what I'll be doing is either area stuff or just discussions on archetypes, the meta, tier lists, things like that. If there's something specific you want me to talk about, you can either message me on Facebook or you can message the channel. Either way is good. Well, alright, I guess that's it for this video. Bye, guys.